go. Check, check. Can everybody hear? Don't mind the little tweaks and bobs here as I try to figure things out. Hello, Landon BR and Gekitsu. It's good to see you. People will be trickling in. Audio confirmed. Awesome. Video a little bit better. A little better. Hopefully. Lighting. I have a giant ass temperature adjusting mood light type thing. You can kind of see. It's very bright. So let's get to it. So, believe it or not, I actually have a bit of a script. Let's go. I have things I want to do. So, couple of topics right off the bat. Turn this down just a bit. So, the first thing is that this stream is more about developers helping developers, right? So I'm going to cover a lot of stuff that I do know, but I'm going to dive into some stuff that I don't, and you're just going to have to be patient. This is what real life is like as a developer. We figure stuff out. So the other thing is there's been two topics that I've been seeing kind of batted around on Twitter today. So the first one is DevRel. And if you're not familiar with the term DevRel, it's developer relations. So that's where a company will hire someone with specific skills like communication or presenting, and they have a strong technical background, and they'll hire them to be kind of an ambassador of goodwill for their company. A lot of people are kind of they're confused about what that should be used for, or they're maybe judging the role by what it's been used for before, and it kind of makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, I get their point. You don't want basically a shill, right? You don't want somebody that the only thing they do is just say, buy my company's X because Y, right? I totally get that. But on the other hand, there are people that are way better than that. So if you follow No Upcat, yeah, she works for Microsoft, but I don't ever get a vibe like from her that that Microsoft is somehow better than the other players in those particular spaces. There's room for competition, and she knows what Microsoft does, but is always open to, well, so and so does it differently, or like I like nine of the things you do, but the one thing I really don't like, and the goal of a good DevRel is to figure out, well, why don't you like it? Like what is it about it that's bad? And maybe that can be fixed, maybe not. Who knows? Maybe the company's just like, we're not in that space. Like I've got into it with a couple of people about DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is not a cloud. They're not a cloud provider. Yeah, they have virtual machines that you can rent in the cloud. They have some other offerings, like routing and databases and things like that that are coming online, but they're not really even in that realm, like AWS or Azure. So you're comparing apples to oranges, and I think buying a DigitalOcean droplet to do your stuff is still completely viable. I mean, it's one of the easiest ways to get started with stuff that's not on your machine. No problem with that. Plenty of space. Zeit also has the same kind of thing. Zeit has a utility called Now. Serverless deployments in the cloud, automatic SSL for free. You can buy domain names through. I bought a couple of domains through them. They have a space, right? There's plenty of room. But the best DevRels that I know of, they kind of take that attitude. They say, let me just show you what we're doing and show you these things that I know, and what do you like or don't like about it? And then maybe they'll take that back for improvement. Who knows? So that's my TED talk about DevRel. So the other one is going around kind of right now where Dan Abramov, if you're not familiar with Dan Abramov, so he was the creator of Redux, works for React now, and he has a way of just kind of like dropping the mic on certain topics, cloud lasts. Yeah, I mean it kind of is. Yeah, exactly. B Scalero. I'm not gonna say your name, but I know who you are. Yeah, no, it's kind of like that. Yeah, it's as a service. It's I wouldn't necessarily even say that DigitalOcean is infrastructure, though. Um, the reason I wouldn't say is that you aren't really you can't really set up VPCs and subnets the same kind of way that you could that I know of with AWS. You can't, for example, connect a VPN connection or some kind of a direct connect type thing. There's lots of things that make it kind of like not infrastructure. To me, I would view DigitalOcean from the start was a colo without the low, right? It's it's just a machine, and you kind of get what you get. It's not really. Yeah, it's exactly. It's a virtual machine, which an EC2 instance is. Um, and that was kind of their base offering, and that's still kind of what they do best. And that's fine that they're expanding out, but to think that they're going to place anywhere on the Gartner survey chart anywhere near Azure or AWS, they just don't have the offerings. It's not what they do. But yeah, so getting back to this whole let's see, hang on, Land and BR. It's similar to EC2, but DigitalOcean as a core is doing something different to AWS as a core. Yeah, yeah, they're just different. I mean, DigitalOcean is very, very easy. It's predictable pricing. One could argue that AWS Lightsail is kind of that way. They kind of have that offering too, but it's new and it's kind of limited. I don't like it. I think that if you want to go with that kind of like that more controlled, like I want a thing that has this maximum stuff that I can do with it for an X price, DigitalOcean is still amazing. By the way, if you don't know about Terraform, Terraform is infrastructure as code, and there actually is a DigitalOcean provider for Terraform. Maybe we'll get into that in another stream, how you could do that. But yeah, so this Dan Abramov comment that he had dropped was talking about how there's been a huge critique about the front end community with regard to like comparing it to the old school days of PHP and a couple of scripts, JavaScript that does Ajax, right? Um, and that the way we do things now is so much more complicated. Sure, yeah, I wouldn't say it's complicated, it's complex, and a lot of authors have taken the pain away from it. We're actually today going to play around with one of them. But he made the point that all of those old things still work. PHP still works. Regular old scripts that you put in a script tag or even inline that just do basic Ajax calls, that shit all still works. So it's not it's not like we all have to move to these modern things. But you'll see in this stream, in the next couple of streams, why maybe you'd want to. Um, but all that old shit still works. I mean, you could just like SSH into a server and use Vim and write a website. That stuff still works. So those are my TED Talks. I was getting that out of the way. All right. You'll notice I want to cover some improvements that I made since last time. It was a pretty rough stream. Pretty rough. The lighting was terrible, and that made kind of dark, grainy video, so I have this giant ass light right in my eyes. So you're welcome. Hopefully that helps the video. I also made sure that I pre-adjusted my fonts. If I throw text on the screen that seems kind of hard to read, let me know, but I think I took a look and it's about as good as I can do, to be honest. It's pretty big, but I still have to have some room to work. I turned off the follower mode. I didn't realize that that I had that setting where it was a 10-minute delay that you have to follow and then wait 10 minutes before you can say anything. I've cut all that shit out. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was even there. I don't think I turned that on. Maybe I did. Um, I did add a couple of people as VIPs. You probably do know them when they stumble in here. If I didn't add you as a VIP, it doesn't mean that you're not important. I just needed to get a few out of the way and I was in a hurry preparing, so no worries about that. Yeah, it's yeah, tech like the amount of time that I spend effing with OWS or OBS is I wish I got paid for that. Okay, so also I have added my keyboard view, the overhead cam, in all of my coding scenes. So we can switch here. So you could see, because some people were interested in the keyboard, and sometimes it helps people to understand. I mean, I don't really have that cool thing like some other streamers like C Sharp Fritz have, where it actually shows the keystrokes and whatnot. Maybe at some point I'll add that, but I just wanted to give an overview so that like I figure it might help while I'm coding if you also can see I will be looking this way, but you'll also see that my hands are on this. And yeah, and there's some stuff that I do with like tmux and in Vim and things like that that might be, I don't know, might be helpful. But yeah, so keyboard view is in by default. Also down below there is an info panel. It is a multi-tab info panel. It's got basic stuff. I'll be adding to it. But I've got my schedule set up. I decided not to stream on Sundays for now because it it competes with a lot of other streamers on Sundays, and I'm definitely not wanting to do that. And also, um, the NFL season is not done, so that's kind of why I haven't been around a lot. In fact, when I stay on No Opcat stream as a moderator, I'm actually like cutting into games and trying to like hear the score behind me in the front room. So Sundays for now are out, but I will do Tuesday, Thursday, and at 4 p.m. and then Saturdays at 10. And I'm thinking Tuesday, Thursday maybe more laid back code oriented, and I may start actually getting. Let me find it here. Give me 1 second. I'm reaching. So we may actually start getting to some of this fun on Saturdays. So Saturdays at 10 o'clock, um, I have some ideas. Whoops, some ideas. Just an Arduino Uno. Um, would like to play around with that. So that may actually be a good time to do that kind of thing. Just to break up the monotony, I suppose, from coding, because I do that all day. So yeah, that's all my news. Let's go through a recap of what we did last time, just to give an overview of why am I approaching things this way. So, over to the code view. Here we go. So, last time, I was working on a project for a client, work project, and the goal was that we had an Angular, a couple of Angular clients, and there were some instructions on how to, quote, build these things. And really, at the end of the day, I want to have static files that I will then execute a deploy step that will pull this container, create it, copy the files, the static files out of the container, and shove those into an S3 bucket, and then probably invalidate CloudFront. The reason why I did this in a container instead of as a step in, let's say, for example, in Jenkins or something, as like a build step, is that because this is built in a container, everything is locked down. So you could see the exact node versions. It's cloning this, so that code is in there forever in this container. Everything that you're building with, they're all locked down. And then the end result. So eventually, when we get the test working, the goal is also that all of the tests have to pass before it continues on building the container and then the resulting built files. And at the very end of it, you end up taking these assets that get built and you end up creating this scratch layer. We'll get into layers, but these are layers. But you create this container scratch, which is a kind of it's a very special Docker container where you can't actually pull the scratch container down. Consider it a no-op, right? I should have mentioned that last stream. It really doesn't do anything. It just creates a blank piece of disk, right? And so then we say, let's make a directory called user, and we're going to copy from the one client, their built stuff into here, copy from the other client, their built stuff into here, and that's it. And when we build it, we can push and tag this image, and then anyone that pulls it down will be able to get the exact same built stuff. So it's really like freezing that artifact into place. So that's where we were, and you could see it took 30 steps to actually get to that point because of all these different things going on. But the end resulting Docker image is actually 46 megs, is the total size of all of that, which, you know, that's nice. It doesn't have an operating system or anything in it. So that's kind of what we did last time. Now, based on some feedback, I wanted to maybe differentiate myself in streaming in that, you know, I'm definitely a Node guy. I've done front end development for going on 13 years. I've now moved into the cloud space, and I'm an AWS practice lead at my consulting agency, and I've done a lot with Docker, obviously. And it kind of struck me, this kind of thing is diving in the deep end a bit. So I'm going to try to do a balance. I'm not going to give an overview of what's a container and like draw pictures and show, you know, the shipping container and like this is how it compares to a virtual machine, and I'm not really going to do that. We're just going to build a thing, and I'm going to show you like a real world example of like why would I want to containerize something? Does that sound good? I want to see some yes no. If it's no, then I have to rework my entire script. Just FYI. I appreciate that. Gekitsu, that's very nice. It, you know, it was impromptu and it was pretty deep, but you know, sometimes explaining stuff is tough because you accidentally, you kind of assume too much, or your audience knows more than you're giving them credit for, and then you just kind of like talk like down to them or beyond them. So I don't want to do that, but script wise, I have an idea. So and you could see it. I'll just move this. So all right. So you'll notice that here. This is what I'm doing now. Is I've got a saved tmux session. So tma-t stream. I've got this set up. I've got stream notes that I'm going through. We did a recap. I'm not going to talk about my keyboard anymore unless somebody asks, but that's okay. So the new project intro. Okay. Let's talk about a new project. So have you heard of Gatsby? Gatsby is freaking awesome. I actually have a Gatsby shirt, 2 of them, and some socks, and I built stuff with it. I was using it way back when it was a very, very early version, and it was still awesome. But Gatsby is a static site generator. Let's talk about Gatsby, because I'll just pull this over here. Let's talk about Gatsby. They have amazing developers. Very active on Twitter. They'll help you. They're actually very thankful when you ask questions, because they're like, oh crap, I didn't really think about that use case. Let's view it this way. So Java originally was a thing where you would write once and run everywhere, right? And now we're getting into things like React. Yeah, land VR, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that you should do that. And in fact, I think you should stream that, but that's just me. So instead of the Java write once run anywhere, people started migrating to React and things like React Native, and then they started doing other crap in React where they like will have different kind of generators. Like you can write Markdown in a React component, and it will turn it into Markdown. But the joys and the dev tooling around React, you get all of that. You get hot reload. You get all of your linting. You can even use TypeScript if you're into that kind of thing, which I'm not, and we're not going to be using it, and so don't ask. You can fork this and do that if you want. I'm not into that kind of thing. So Gatsby decided that they were gonna do the same kind of thing and kind of like turn this whole website idea on its head, right? So back in the day, and I'm still fighting with this, WordPress was king. Some will argue WordPress is still king. I'm not going to argue that. But the idea is that you have a whole bunch of shit stored in a database, and then you have a whole bunch of transformation files that then will produce a view to your user. Now, sometimes you'll run across WordPress sites that will actually have like stats, and it will say how many queries were made to produce the page that you're seeing, and it's insane. It will be like the landing page or like the contact page or something that in the real world never frickin' changes. Ever. Like, how often do companies move offices? Yet, every visitor, it's a query to the database to pull that information out and render it to you, the user, which was kind of handled by caching. But then at the end of the day, it's like, why? Well, the answer is, well, but my client allegedly wants to be able to manage their content. They don't. Um, but they say that they do. They don't. They won't. Um, so instead of that, instead of this on user request, assemble the thing and have this crazy WYSIWYG editor type thing going on, they decided to turn it around and they said, we're actually just going to build it statically and dump a bunch of static files in a folder, and that's your site. The data comes from the backend systems, whether it be markdown files that get transformed, um, a WordPress headless CMS where it's still a database that things are pulling from. It could be an API call to the weather. It could be Google Maps. It could be, any data source you could imagine gets pulled together at build time, right? Not at request time. And so that's the beauty of this. It's also GraphQL behind the scenes that actually does all that orchestration. We'll get into GraphQL at some point in this stream because I love it. And we kind of, we'll have to use it at some point. So it also produces a static progressive app. So a progressive app has these features where it can support like offline mode, it can support server-side rendered, it can support, if your client has JavaScript, it can load it like a single page application, and then in the background, it can prefetch all these other things that they might want to go to, making it feel extremely fast. So the term is Jamstack, I guess, is their term for that. But we're gonna build a thing with this, right? We're not gonna go into a CMS. We're not gonna do any of that kind of crap today. But we're gonna get started with it. And the getting started is exactly why you'll see why would I want to containerize this. So best place to look, big fat button called Get Started. Do I only do JavaScript? By and large, yeah. Yeah. I don't do a lot of Python unless I have to, and that's mostly if I'm working with some AWS specific things where I need to use Boto, um, like user data on an EC2 server, sometimes Lambda functions. I don't use a lot of Python, not that much these days. Um, I don't have anything against it. It's just not my thing. So as far as the language though, I do a lot of different stuff. So I would argue that Docker files and Docker Compose, even though they're kind of standard, they're not JavaScript. So you do have to know what you're doing, and there is a syntax. Also, Terraform. So Terraform uses a language called HCL. I can try Hugo. Yeah, I know there are a lot of other static site generators, but um, this one is kind of unique, I think. You'll see what I mean. But yeah, I'm aware of Hugo and Jekyll. There's a lot of people that are moving away from those, to be honest. Whatever their drive is to move away from it, I don't know, but they are. I used to use Jekyll back in the day. It was okay, back when I was into the Ruby type stuff. It it was okay. I didn't have a problem with that. Okay, so let's do quick start. I think. Do we want quick start? We do. Golang. That's Golang is. I do not know Go. I should know it mostly because of Terraform. I need to get into that, especially if I'm going to write a custom provider. Most of their stuff is written in Go. It's kind of tough for me to dive in and figure out what's going on. I do have some issues with Go though. Go is I've run into problems where someone tried to share a thing they built in Go, and I was like, I can't install it and run it. And it's because they forgot to check in their dependencies. You check in your dependencies. For me, right off, that's a non-starter. That just seems dumb. Like we figured that out forever ago. You don't check in dependencies. But apparently that's what you do, because if you don't check them in, then it will automatically default to going and fetching the absolute latest of a thing. Maybe there's a design decision behind that. I don't know. It just seemed kind of goofy, and I haven't really run into a reason to use Go yet. So when I do, I probably will. Okay, so let's look at the very basics of this quick start. Install Gatsby's command line tool, this right here. Right off the bat, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Not on my machine. I don't want to do it. So then you install globally this Gatsby CLI tool. This is just like when you install Create React App, that tool, or Parcel. Parcel's another. They all want you to do it globally. Create React App have updated their documentation though, where you don't have to install it. You can use npx. We probably will end up doing that, but anyway, they want you to install this global tool, and then they want you to generate a site with that tool. This will remind you of like Rails generators or Angular generators or Create React App, all these other kind of things. Then you go into it and you run again the global command to run develop, and you get a dev server. And we won't worry about the production build for now. We just want to get a thing up, hot reloading, that we can start messing around with the files. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to move this over here so we can get a place to work. So let's see. Okay. So I think I already did this. I think I already got VS Code ready to go. Yes. Already got this, and it looks like that's kind of readable. Cool. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a get ignore file. So we're going to touch get ignore, and we're going to edit that with the built-in, well, it's not built-in. I think this might be a VS Code plugin, I think. So generate get ignore. This is really cool. So somebody with Windows may end up messing around with this. At some point, we're going to have Terraform in here. Let's see what else. I don't know if there's, no, not Docker. Okay, it's going to write out. Yeah, nice, nice. Land BR. Font size looks good. Good. This is about as big as I can work with. Otherwise, it's can't see enough. At the very bottom, I'm actually going to add in a custom rule for engineer notes.md. So this is a thing that I like to do in about every repo is I keep track of what I'm doing and where I left off, because who knows, it may be days or weeks before I get back to a project, and I want to know, like, real quick, what the hell was I doing, right? So that's what this is. So engineer notes. Wait. Stuff. We need a get project. Obviously, we need a Docker file. Volume map. Instructions. That's just some basic stuff that we'll have to do. So, okay. So, not a Git repository. So, git init. Okay. Cool. We'll commit this. Now I want to show you something cool. Okay, so drop down with the checkboxes. That was specific to that particular extension, and it's to generate get ignore. So if I do that, it says override or update. So let's say I'm just going to update it. It's that actual extension that's providing this drop down with all those boxes. So that's it doing it, which is really cool, right? I think so. Because I mean, who really who wants to do this all the time? So the really cool thing, if I let me do this in a different one. Okay. I have a lot of aliases. Is it a custom view? Well, it's an actual extension. Yeah, it's an extension for generating gitignore files. And so when you hit, well, I hit F1. Whenever I activate the command palette, I think they call it, in VS Code, and I type in the generate gitignore, from that point on, it takes over. And so if you write an extension that just asks for input or options and a dropdown and checkboxes and radio boxes, that's all kind of that view that's in their control of that extension. Okay, so I'm going to create this and I'm going to put this out on the hubs that get, but right now it doesn't exist. And so what I used to do in the past is I would go on GitHub and create, I would create a repo and then I would clone it, or it would say existing repo, add remotes, whatever. Yeah, but what if I'm here and I don't even want to have to go on GitHub? Well, there's a tool for that can do it. So I'm going in my dot files. Everybody should have dot files. I have a few. Yeah, it's that one. So you'll notice right here that I've aliased get. So anytime I type get, it's actually executing this command called hub. Now, what is hub and how did I get hub? So with Homebrew, I installed hub. Hub is a tool, I think GitHub actually put it out, but it's a command line tool that is kind of a wrapper around the normal Git functions, but it provides some really unique things like being able to create repos right on your machine, and then it will create them on GitHub instead of having to do the other way around or having to create it and then clone it. Like maybe you're working on something and you never know if you want this to actually be published. You want to put it under version control always, just get in it always, but you don't know if you want to put it out on GitHub. Well, also, what if you want to script this and you don't actually want a person clicking around on the browser? So that's what we're going to use. And I don't remember the command, so you're gonna learn with me. I think it's hub create, but we'll see. Hub create, okay. Hub create. We're not gonna make it private, so we'll just go ahead and make this public. I don't care about explicitly naming it, so I don't have to pass that in. Description, it doesn't matter. I can do that later. So I think I just say hub create. See if that works. Let's see if that worked. Do I have it? Boom! Look at that. There we go. All right. Got him. You'll notice that I probably try to not curse a whole lot, but there actually is a profanity-laden command that I'll end up using on here every now and then. So we'll just get that out of the way. It's a really useful command, but now we're going to make a branch, right? Don't want to do off master, so we'll check out -b docker Gatsby. Whoops, check out oot. And then if I said get push, now it has a problem, and I use this command that I installed. I know. But it detects what I was trying to do from the error message of doing it, and it will just do it for me. So that's about all the profanity that we're going to have here. Are we talking the... yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep, exactly. It works. It works. Okay. We're going to want a directory for our files. We know that for sure. So I'm just going to do that real quick. App and app.get. So this goofy thing that I keep doing with the .get keep in empty files, it's kind of a quirk with Git, is that if you make an empty directory, Git will not track that at all. And so you could have this directory that you intend to hold some things, and you push, someone else will clone this down, and they'll have no idea that that directory is on your machine. But if you put a file into it, even if it's an empty file, Git will see it, and it's like, oh, okay, that's, we'll commit that. So these little empty .git keeps, I usually clean those up after a while. But yeah, kind of thing you send people and they laugh and they say, no, yeah, it's, well, rename it whatever you want, but to be honest, like the intention is there and it makes sense to me. So, okay, so back to this. So we have this directory we know we're going to want our stuff in, but we're also going to want a Docker file. Why are we going to want a Docker file? We're going to want a Docker file because of all that crappy instruction. And we're going to end up taking this and essentially creating a Docker file step by step, line by line, building this up until we have the thing that we want. Does it make sense? So, what version of Node do we want to use? I'll use whatever. I don't care. So you go into Docker Hub, search for Node. I'm not going to go with Alpine. I have a feeling that we're going to want other stuff in with it. We can build a smaller resulting image, but if you go with the Node one, the non-Alpine, you actually get a couple other utilities in there too, which are convenient. So you just go search for Node, official image. They have a few variants. I think 10 is probably, I haven't used it. I think we'll go with that. Let's go 10.15. So, very first step to a Docker file. What are we starting with? You can start with all kinds of stuff. You can start with Scratch, which is empty. Build your own thing up. You start with one of these that's a flavor node. There's a Go. There's a MySQL. There's all these kind of official vendored images. All caps. From node. And then you tell it what version, what kind of a version or flavor from here would you like to use. So we're just going to use nothing bizarre, just the version number. Be 15.0. And I'm just going to add comments. Anybody that's used to Docker files probably wouldn't get a lot of value out of the comments, but I find that it helps remind myself what I was doing. So from here, now we're going to make a working directory. We're going to make it user app, and so that what that means is it's going to create those two directories nested and put our context in there. So if we actually started this up and we bashed into it, we would end up landing right there. So it kind of says, this is your place in the world. Now we go back to the instructions. And it says npm install globally Gatsby CLI. I don't believe we have to do that. I don't believe we have to do it. We'll go ahead and do it, but I don't believe we'll have to do it. We can go back and revise this. So in order for that to run, you have to use the run command. So you can say run npm install global Gatsby CLI and Gatsby new. What do we want to call this thing? This site. Let's call it Naming things is hard. Actually, that's a good name. Naming things is hard. I don't care. So we'll do that. One of the tricks that I try to do is I try to combine commands. It So Landon BR was saying something yesterday where you want your layers to do only specific things. Yes, when you're talking about layers in terms of the multi-stage build, where that group of things is considered, it's not really a layer, it's a container. You want your containers themselves to do specific things. Your layers, yeah, exactly. So, hey, it's a blog called Naming Things is Hard. It's perfect. When you run things like this, it's a good idea to combine as many steps on a single layer, which this run, that's a single layer. If I were to run another command, that would be a second layer. So if we can get away with doing stuff this way, and you can actually break your things up this way into multi-line statements, in case they get a little too wide, and you could just keep chaining those kind of things together. They will execute one and then the other and then the other, not in parallel. And that makes it so that all of that activity was just one little layer. In this case, because it's so early in the image, it makes a lot of sense to do that because we're not, I mean, we will here in a second. I'll show you a different way to do this, but we're not going to be changing anything about that install and creating the new package. And I think we're going to run into an issue with this being this new generator type thing. Yeah, every command, almost every keyword that's on a line will create a new image layer. So run, copy, add from, yeah, exactly. That hash is the hash of the container. In fact, going back to this other project I was doing, you'll notice right here where it says using cache, that's the ID of that cached container layer, and it'll use a cache if that layer hasn't changed, right? So it's kind of keeping that. And so what you want to do is you want to put the things, so if you think of it like an inverted cake, okay? So the top of the Docker file is the bottom of the cake, and it's a layered cake. Well, if you start messing around with the bottom one, that's going to alter the things above it. Like they'll fall on the floor, or I don't know, whatever. It's like a Jenga set. So, but if you mess with the things on the top, the ones on the bottom are never even touched. So if you put icing on the top, the bottom doesn't change at all. So if you take that idea of a layered cake and you turn it upside down, where this is your from node as base, and then you say, well, with node, I'm going to have to install git, and I'm going to have to do a git checkout, and then I'm going to generate a project, and then I'm going to copy in a package JSON, and then I'm going to install the dependencies, and then I'm going to copy in my application code, and then I'm going to run the container. Well, what things are more likely to change? The application code. And so when those change, these get rebuilt, all this other stuff stays the same, and it's cached. Make sense? Inverted layer cake, birthday cake type thing. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the weird part where the fact is we're using a generator, which sucks. So I'll show you how to get around that. What we'll do here yeah, I think we'll just do this. So where I'm at right now, I'll say Docker build, and I'll give it a name. The T is just giving it a name and then optionally a tag. Naming. Docker build T naming. So we'll build this, and then we'll bash into it when it's done. So you notice how this sed already exists? That's because there's a whole bunch of stuff related to Node that I already had on my machine. even though I wasn't using Node 10. This is the first time I've ever used it. I used Node 8. And so Node 8 already had a whole bunch of crap like an operating system and whatnot that Node 10 also used. So all of those layers that I had already pulled, they're the same. The only difference is going from the 8.14.0 to the 10.15.0 changed one of the smaller layers. Yeah, exactly. Geketsu actually, you can force it to not remove your intermediate containers, and that's a cool technique where in one of the layers, if you were running tests, like I want to, like right here, if you were running tests, allegedly your test will create output in the form of, some sort of like JUnit XML, right? That you could feed into Jenkins or some other build system to be able to actually look at your test and dive into it. Well, the problem is the way it is now, after this gets built, all of those intermediate layers get removed, which is a good thing for one reason. So if we go up, you'll notice right here in this base layer, I'm passing in a relatively sensitive credential, and don't worry, I rotated my keys after that stream, so I already did that. You're passing in relatively sensitive credentials into here to be able to clone over HTTPS this repository. But because we never actually like really end up using that layer as the end product, the only thing that we do is we copy from it. It ends up getting erased, essentially. So it discards this entire layer along with all your sensitive information. So this totally gets blown out. That's a problem if you want to retain the results of your test. And so I don't remember the exact command, but you can tell it don't discard my intermediate ones. And then what you're left with is this intermediate container sitting there with your test results, exactly the same as our Scratch container at the end of the day was sitting there with our built files. And we simply created a container from this and copied the files. You could create a container from that intermediate image and extract your JUnit test results to feed into Jenkins or whatever test reporting thing that you're using. So yeah, that's what all those weird hashes and intermediate layers and whatnot are for. Okay. All right. Getting back to it. We have built this. I'm going to shell in real quick, and then we're going to take a short break because I'm trying to Pomodoro as best I can, but I'm excited to try this here. So, DILS. I don't really like how this outputs, but I think it followed the name. What did I name it? So DILS grep. Whoops. I'll do this so you guys can see. Grep naming. There it is. So run IT RM naming match. Yeah, we're in. Okay. Which Gatsby? Nope. Oh, which Gatsby? There. So we've got it installed globally, and we can generate the files. The problem is the files are going to be locked inside this container, and at the end of the day, that's not what we want. Yeah, exactly, Gekitsu. You don't want the unnecessary clutter of layers. When you're doing a multi-stage build, it's not a huge deal, but it is going to take space. But if you're doing things where like you install a whole bunch of crap, you'll find this a lot. Whenever you see containers doing apt-get install -y, you'll start seeing that they start chaining those together, and then they will actually chain cleanup stuff to it, like remove cache and remove build artifacts and things like that from whatever it took to install and build the tool it needs, and it'll remove the rest of the crap, all like in one command. It's perfectly acceptable to do that. It's a good idea. And it's more about grouping together things that shouldn't change. The general mantra is that with the Docker layers as well as with code in general, I would say, is things that change together should live together, right? So if the structure of your application is such that when you change code, you're also changing your unit test, then your code and your unit test should live together. And if you change your styles, it should live together with it. If you're changing data handling, it should live together with it. It makes it so that you can avoid the problem that we've had in the past where to make a small change, you end up opening 50 freaking files. I worked on a big fat ass Ember app that was exactly like that. Big pain in the ass. So, with that, we're going to take a pause. I will be back in a few minutes. We will continue with our Docker exploration and attempt to solve this problem that I can absolutely see coming. I'll explain why. So, back in a few. Okay, we're back. I'm gonna try to make sure the music's not too loud. Can you guys let me know if this is okay? Does this sound good to you guys? Welcome back, welcome back. Yes. Good thought, Lennon BR. Good thought. I appreciate it. Some of this stuff, it's kind of weird until you hear it and see it, and then you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course, obviously, this non-obvious thing. Perfect. Thank you, Get Kitsu. One of these days, I'm gonna get your name right on the first try. So, where we were following along in the instructions for the Gatsby Quick Start. And here is the problem with these generators. If you think about the concept of a container, right, especially for what we're going to use it for at first, is we want to develop in yucky. Okay, cool. I got that. We want to avoid polluting our host machine. We want to develop in the container. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, in here, if I say, which, I know, she's so good. No Upcat is the best. If I say which Gatsby, I don't have it on my machine. Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. I could actually use a cool utility that's bundled in with modern versions of Node called NPX to do that. And so an example of that is I created, those little NPX business cards. So NPX DR Poindexter. So there is a package out on NPM named this. What this does is it goes and grabs the package, installs it in place in memory, and then executes the binary in it. We could do that with Gatsby. Oops. Dang. See, this is why I need assistance. I'm just not this good. We could do this. We could do the NPX thing. However, what if I was using a version of Node that didn't have NPX even bundled? Well, that's a great case to do that stuff in a container, where the container will say, I'm going to use modern version of Node. So I've got NVM on here. So if I do NVM ls, right now I'm using 8.11. The container I was just working in last night is 8.15. Now I'm working on 10.15, and you'll notice none of those versions of Node are even installed on this machine. I don't have to have it. The container has it in it, right? So that's the beauty of it. Now, that said, we're still going to run into a problem. The problem we're going to run into is if we, at the start of this Docker file, generate a new project, it's going to completely screw up our world when we're trying to use the container to develop a project using volume mounting. We're going to get to the volume mounting like immediately. Volume mounting is a way for you to persist files from inside of the container to your host machine on the fly. This is done only at runtime. It's completely different than what I did where I built an image, created a container, and did a Docker CP of the files out of it. You can do that. It's a way that you can get files pulled from a container onto your host machine. At the end of the day, we actually want to take files from our machine and we want to shove them into the container when it's running. This will allow us to then have I'm going to say my Mac, right? Because that's what I'm on. My Mac will have my project files and the Git repo, and my tooling and VS Code will be looking at that and editing that. And then over here, this container will have those files shoved into it for it to run and execute, exposed on a port, like a dev server. But when I make a change in VS Code, it'll be reflected in here. Now, what I really want to do, one time only from in the container, I want to run the generate command, and I want that to persist the other way onto my machine. And we won't actually record the Gatsby generate command in the Docker file, because we don't want it to try to generate a new project every time it builds. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that now. So we'll exit out of here. We don't need that Gatsby CLI. I don't think. So we'll build this again. Here we go. Build it again. You notice not a lot changed. LANBR, one of the issues open for a project at work is to Dockerize our application for development. We use Docker for CI, but not for dev yet. Should be fairly simple, since we would only need a Postgres container and a Node container that can talk to each other. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It would be very simple to do that. Your best bet is to look into Docker Compose, which we may not get to tonight, but we are absolutely going to use that in this project. So now I'm going to attach again to this that does not install the Gatsby. So which Gats? So I don't have it, and I don't need it. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it, but I'm going to mount a volume. So -V, I believe, and then I can do quotes. This should execute as my current working directory. I'll mount my current directory into the user app. This should work. Famous last words. No, hang on. No, hang on. I got that wrong. I'm going to have to look this up. Hang on. I always forget the syntax because I use compose all the time. Actually, I don't have to do that. I'm not going to Google it. Take this as advice. Publish absolutely everything that you do on GitHub and everywhere else, because you can then go look at exactly how you did it. Look, that's pretty much what I'm wanting to do. It's my own code. So this is what we want to do. We want not the parentheses, not the parents. So our pwd slash, we're going to take our current working directory /app. Yeah, I think that works. Nope. That's not. Oh, okay. That's right. Order of operation here. Options, then my stuff. And I think I called it naming. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah, man, that and GitHub Jest, I put a lot of stuff up there, and you can create private Jest if you don't want people poking around your stuff if it's kind of sensitive. So it's a nice little, it's searchable. It's it's your own kind of note taking. I know there's tons of apps and stuff that do that. There's some that integrate with GitHub Jest, which is cool. I just, at the end of the day, it's got to live somewhere more reliable than my machine. So that's kind of my thing. And I reference my own past code all the time, because unless you're doing a particular thing all the time, syntax is very difficult to remember. Like you just saw, like that was a very simple thing, but at least I had it right there. So now we're inside here. Now, what I'm curious about though, do I see that git keep? Yeah, it got mounted in. So if I do touch test, does it come back out here? Yeah, look at that. This is what we're after. So I can mount files from in here into the container through the volume mount, but I can also create files in the container and they'll persist out here. That's how we're going to generate this thing. And we're going to run npx Gatsby. Gatsby, I believe you actually do CLI new naming things is hard. I think this will work. Hell, I don't know. I don't know. Sorry, you guys can't see it, like all of it. I should remember. I think I need to figure out a better placement for my video so you could see it. But it's doing it. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Look at that. Boom! Look! What? This is perfect. This is a beautiful thing. Oh my lord. Oh, Node. One eternity later. So, what we wanted to do actually worked. It's because of the theory. Exactly. They're being created in the container, but they're appearing on my machine. It's nothing special with the Docker image itself though, right? So if I already had these things and I want to put them in the image, I could use the add or the copy command at build time. So there's a difference between build time and runtime. Build time is like, where is this? So build time is like this guy, right? This, where I actually say I have a container and I need to get code in there. You can get clone it in. You can use curl, wget. You can use the copy command. So copy from my host into it, whatever you want to do. But that's a build time thing. And so when you're done with the image, it's in there. And if you push this image, which essentially it's kind of like an ISO file, to be honest, you push this to a registry. So there's a name and there's versioning, and someone else pulls from that registry, they're going to get your files along with it. This is a little different though. We're going to build the basics for making this whole thing run, but it's going to depend on you mounting your source files into it. Now you may be asking yourself, well, that doesn't sound like a really good way to build for production. That's because we're only building this one for dev. Later I'll show you how you actually compose files to build a production file. That'll be coming up. Let's see if we're done here with this node nonsense. My machine is going crazy. Nope, it's still going. Sure glad I'm not going to have to do this again. Goodness. Yeah, it not only did that, but it's actually doing an npm install for everything this thing needs, which is like the world. But yeah, how cool is this though? I love it. So to review, let's see what we've already accomplished. We did not npm install global Gatsby. We in fact did not even use npm on our machine. We in fact did not even use Node on our host. And we used a whole version of Node that I don't even have. I don't even have that on this machine. 10.15. Took latest. We try it. We did not use the Gatsby CLI. We used npx to then execute that, to then create the new named site, which is a one-off command. We won't have to run that again. And now it's going to live on our host, and we'll commit that to source control, and we'll push that up off our machine. Always push your code, even if it's a branch that's named something stupid. Well, I mean, you know, if you're doing it for work, don't, you know what I mean. So we push that so it's off our machine. So if our machine dies in a car wreck, the code's already out there. So what we will do is we will handle this part in the Docker file. We will specify a working directory, which will essentially cd to, and then we'll be able to run Gatsby develop. There's a few things that we'll have to do though, and I have an example of that too. So there's kind of some best practices we're going to want to do. I think it's my... Is it that guy? Maybe it is that. Yeah. No, it's certainly not that. Man, what is the Docker image specs? So, that's a good question. Because we're not really limiting what this Docker container can do, it's going to use everything it can grab. Now, if you're going to install Docker, are you so Bokjo, are you a Docker user? Do you use Docker currently? So there's what I'm using. So on a Mac, there is actually a dedicated application called Docker for Mac. And there's one for Windows called Docker for Windows. And on Linux, there's no dedicated machine because it uses everything. So right now, in Docker for Mac, my settings for what anything Docker can use, I cranked it up to 6 CPUs and 6 gigs of RAM because I built a lot of stuff and I was running into issues. So I would say right now, while it's building a lot, when it's running though, you know, it's just a Node app. It'd be a dev server, just a normal dev server that Gatsby uses. It's very similar. It's a Webpack thing, so it won't use a whole lot. Let's see. Okay, I think we're good. Yeah, sweet. All right, so the thing is called. We don't need this. We don't need that. A lot with Kubernetes. That's awesome. I've done some Kubernetes stuff a little while back. It was very complicated back in the day. Now there's a native support for Kubernetes with Docker Swarm, which I think is kind of cool. You basically do the normal Docker Swarm stuff and just specify orchestrator Kubernetes. And it will take your Swarm file and your Compose file, and it will generate all the stuff you need for Kubernetes, like your replica sets. It'll generate all that stuff. It'll take you probably a fifth of the lines of code to do it that way than it is to write the raw Kubernetes. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's go take a look. Yeah, there's Docker. Just go Docker, click Get Started if you don't have it installed. Mac, Windows. You can try a free lab. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm looking for something specific though. It's not that. Oh, actually, this. So, Landon BR, were you the one that was saying that you were going to have to do a Node and Postgres type thing? So if you are, take a look at this repo. So this is a Docker Compose file. We'll get there. I have 3 services. I have a web service, which is Nginx. It's just a simple reverse proxy. I have Node, so there is an API. I have a Postgres database that gets spun up. It does a volume mount. It actually uses secrets. Secrets are based on a file, but you can base them on invars. The key is that you have links, so Node links to DB so it can communicate, and it will just address it as DB. And web links to Node so that it can hit the API, but it doesn't link to DB because it doesn't need to talk to it. These are just your secrets. This is your environment. This run secrets thing is pretty common. So this might be of some use for you. I don't know how long ago I did this, but there it is. If you want it. It's still not what I'm looking for. I think, let's see, maybe it's that. It's not what I did. Yeah, Cloudless was another very big project that I worked on that was pretty cool. Is it there? Yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Okay. I'm not going to do all this nonsense, but the important part is doing this kind of this order. And so we want to make sure that we get our paths right when we're copying stuff into this new container. It's with the Robert Tables name. Oh my. Please do enjoy. That's where it's from. Not a lot of people get it right off the bat, and some people surprise me, and they're like, oh my god, that username. Yeah. So, remember when I was telling you guys about layers? This is kind of how you do this, where you copy your dependency type stuff in first. You run your npm install, and then later you copy in your app. This is what we want to do. And I actually did just this, exactly this, actually, that's where I was looking for, on NoOpCats repo. I've done this on a few repos now. I just bounce around and I do this kind of stuff for people, for the community. Yeah, right here. Bump this up. So this one just takes from Alpine. We're going to set up our workspace. We're going to copy just the package JSON and the JSON lock. We're going to npm install quiet. I put the quiet so that it kind of like hushes a lot of the crappy output from the npm install. Then we copy our app source. Then we expose our ports. And we have an npm command, which for us will probably end up being something like run the dev server. Also, we have a Docker compose file. Yeah, look, Joe, no worries, no worries. We also have a Docker compose file. This also helps with mounting volumes and whatnot. We probably will do that at some point very quickly. I just want to get something working. So let's get something working. Now we know we have our stuff installed. We don't have to do that again. Move this over here for later reference, as they say. We got our work directory. Oh, whoops. I'll comment here. Set up a workspace. Thanks for explaining this. Wonder why you copy. Yeah, exactly. No, it's all about that layer stuff. And really, if you were to make a change, you know, on the client, if you were to make a change to package JSON by installing, upgrading, or removing a dependency, then Docker will see that as a change file, and it will know that it has to rebuild that, and then everything below it. So you can still affect change. It's just, if you're hardly ever adjusting your package file, you don't want that to be changing all the time. But if you're updating your app all the time, which you will be, then that's a whole different story, right? So we're going to do, let's see, we'll do dependencies first. So copy. Now what we want, we're going to end up mounting the whole app for now. And so the location is going to be naming things hard slash I'm pretty sure I don't know if this is how I want to go about it, but we'll see. I think this should work. Yeah, I think this will be fine. No. Okay, I think we don't want to mount the whole app inside there. It just is how it worked out because we used a generator and we added a name. I think instead of the Gatsby thing, if we added just a dot, maybe it would have done it in the current directory instead of... That's okay, we can fix it later. So we'll do that, and we'll also want the... Oops. Okay. Okay, so our copy command, install on, we'll want it, yeah, it'll be right here. Yep, so what we'll do is we'll grab the naming things is hard, we'll mount the whole app. We'll figure that out when we get to the compose part, but we'll copy all of this. We will have installed, we should have this running, and according to this quick start, we would run a command Gatsby develop. And so we'll call this npx. Actually, no, hang on. package JSON? No, that's package lock. Here we go. Gatsby develop, where's the scripts? Look, that right here, we could just do npm run develop. So we already know we have npm. So we'll say npm run develop. And that's kind of like our basic thing. So we will install it. We'll copy the source over here. This will be copied to here. We install, we're in user. Okay, let's build it. What do you think? We're not going to do a volume mount either, because at the package build time, it's going to copy all that crap in. So it should already be there. Later, when we're developing, we're going to use Compose to do a volume mount so that we can be doing that live editing. But right now, this should work. And it should be exposed on localhost 8000 is what it says. With hot reloading and everything, it says 8000. So that means in our container, we need to expose a port 8000. So no, it won't be. It won't be. So you're right. LandMBR, you're exactly right. So the difference though is that it will be installed as the dependencies with the npm install. So if you look at, so this is going to say Gatsby develop, so it needs a Gatsby, but Gatsby will try to resolve itself to something in the bin directory of your node modules, which is right here. I know that's hard to see. Right here. So it's already got that bin installed, so it doesn't need it globally. And so since we're using npm to run this command, then npm is going to say, Gatsby, what's a Gatsby? Where's a Gatsby? Well, first thing I'm going to look is, do I have it in the bin folder of my node modules? And if it doesn't find it there, it'll say, do I have it globally? But it will find it there, and the reason it'll be there is because it was specified here in the dependencies, if that makes sense. But yeah, that would be a thing that would trip me up, but this is why I generally shy away from things that use generators. I like what they can do. I don't like them. I mean, it's cool what they end up producing, but using them is kind of a pain unless you do it the way that I'm doing it now. Do the runoff in the container, copy that crap back to your host, and then never run it again. It's also why the Create React App team have now updated their documentation to say you should use npx instead of globally installing Create React App to run it, once creating a project? Maybe a couple of times creating a few projects, but by and large, it sits there and does nothing on your machine. It's a generator. Like, you only use it to start a thing, to generate a thing, to create a thing. So we're going to rebuild this. I think it's going to work. I'm going to build this again. So, whoops, hang on. We're going to save the file, and then we're going to build this again. Does that sound good? So, we're going to build it. So I'm hoping that I'm going to see a step from node that's... Oh, what are you doing? Oh, okay. Copy failed. No such. Oh, hold up. Hold up, I think I did something dumb. No such file exists. I bet I have to do this. Let's try that again. I think it can't find it. Gatsby CLI globally, so I didn't... Yeah, I mean, if that happens with a lot of stuff, you know. Angular CLI, the new modern Angular is the same thing. You'll have an ng command installed in your package JSON, or in your node modules bin, that you could then have your npm for build be ng build, but the ng that it runs can be in your node modules and not installed globally. Okay, there we go. So I just had a context wrong with my build context. So I'm copying from the app naming things, which is in here. I'm copying package JSON and package lock. Who's this package JSON guy? we're always talking about. And yarn. Tonight's not the night to get me started on yarn. Not a fan. Not a fan. I will at some point go back through some of these videos and figure out exactly how much time I've spent sitting around waiting for Docker builds and npm installs to run. I'd just be curious. Here we go. Uh-oh. Oh, I don't know what the hell that is. I'm sure hoping that's not me. Yikes. Well, while this is being silly, I'm going to go use the restroom right quick. Hopefully this is going to do its thing. I don't know. We might have broke something. Which I'm okay with. That's fine. So, I will BRB. Hey, alright, we're back. We are back. Oh! Let's see, Pixel Producto? Am I saying that right? I like that name. Welcome. We're doing some Docker stuff today. It looks like, despite all of the horrible errors and it looking like it was blowing up my machine, apparently it's running. So, tips and tricks, Docker tips and tricks. Are you ready for another one that may not be super obvious for you? Let's go back to the code here. I'll show you something really interesting, and this trips people up a lot. So, yeah, we're gonna have to do this. Damn. Now, luckily, because of the magic of television, no, I'm kidding. When I run this again, it should not have to rebuild the entire thing. So, this command on line 21 that we have defined in the container, remember, the difference between build time and runtime is build time, by and large, it's doing all of those instructions that are above it. So at build time, you do want it to copy stuff in. A big reason why you want to do this is you want things like node sass, anything that depends on node jip, or any of the native lib, like libuv. You want those to be built on the native thing it's going to run on, which is totally different in an Ubuntu-based, a Jessie-based container than it is on your Darwin-based Mac. So they actually have to compile. They have to pull down the right ones. Yeah, there we go. It's already done. So that's all build time stuff. Runtime, though, these right here don't matter until you run it. So it technically never really got to doing anything with this command. Now, it did register it in the container. If you just run the container and you don't provide it any commands that would override it, that would be what gets executed. It will do npm run develop in that working directory that you last left off in. But for the build, it doesn't like put together the container and then execute this npm run develop. So keep that in mind. If you do want it to do a thing right before, which we probably won't really do much with, there's a concept of an entry point. An entry point is a script, a thing you define that will run right before this command gets executed. So you could do stuff like intercept exit signals and things like that. So we've got this thing built. We've got our files in it. We're not doing a volume mapping right now. But can we run it and expose the port and see that this Gatsby thing is running like the instructions say that it should? Let's see. So, DILS, oops, I'll do this so you guys can see it, because I'm trying to be aware of the placement of my face on the code. Right, so we will run, and I just have D as a shortcut for Docker. DI is for Docker image. You'll get so tired of typing crap that you'll make a bunch of bash aliases, and then you'll hop on someone else's machine or remote into another one and feel completely lost, like I do all the time. That's okay. So when we run it, we're going to give it IT. This is a combined flag, so it's -i-t, but you can put -it. So the T is allocate a sudo tty terminal to it. The I is make that interactive. Actually, I don't think we need the terminal, because I don't care about seeing run logs. So we will just docker run naming, and we'll just do this for now. We'll want to expose some ports. So -p. So although the container says I'm exposing port 8000, and we picked 8000 because that's what this Gatsby dev server is gonna be running on, we still have to map that internal container exposing its 8000 port to the 8000 port on our machine. I'll show you that in a second, as soon as this works. Okay. Do it go. Now it's running Gatsby develop. It's doing a thing that Gatsby develop does. It's building some stuff. It compiled successfully. And we should be able to see it. So let's try this out. Localhost. You could tell I do a lot with ports. Alright. Well, that's not good. Wait, is is actually going. Pretty sure I did that right. Let me open Kitematic here right quick. So Kitematic ships with Docker for Mac. Docker for Win. It doesn't ship with it. That's, you have to go download it. Container logs. Let's go look at the settings. The settings look like the port should be mapped right. What's this guy? Oh, that's an old thing. Okay, this is kind of weird. I've never run into this. See, this is what development is really like. Are you guys having fun yet? And I think pages. Huh. Interesting. Does it on 8,000. I know I ran it on 8,000. Oh my goodness, what did we break? Yes, it's allegedly, it should be working. There is no web preview, so it for real is not doing it. Let's go into it. Just here for the music. Well, it's probably all that's going to be going on. So it was supposed to run Gatsby develop. Oh, that's funny. So they have a shortcut npm start, but it does the same thing. I just want to see what the output would look like. No, do a different port. Just to see what it would look like. Yeah, it's already... Okay. So it's already running. Alright. Error. Actually, are the paths even right? WD, we're in app. Yeah. User app. Inside the container, user app. That's good. Failed to compile. Now it's throwing a bunch of errors. Failed to compile. Cache. Cache. Well, that's probably when I spun up that other dev server. I probably broke something. That's okay. There's no vim or vi in this container. Are you kidding me? What on earth? Well, that's a shame. Okay. Okay. We're gonna have to do this differently then. So... Okay. Oh, that's what it was showing me. So, I have Lucid Johnson as that container. What? What? Okay, I'm gonna have to screenshot that. Lucid Johnson. This is a family-friendly channel, but That's the generated container name that I got from Docker. I'm not making this up, folks. Okay. Now let's do volume mount. Let's mount, I think it was app naming things is hard. We'll mount this into user app. And Hungry Clark. Yes, exactly. Lana BR. Hawkeye bit famished. I hope he's doing pretty good. He was taking a little bit of a break for the holidays. So I just want to see if this thing is maybe like not mounting things correctly, because that's a pretty weird error to get. And we should be able to edit pages. I just wonder if there was an issue getting that hot reload out of the container. There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. And I've not edited the project at all anyway. Oh, that's it. So it created this cache directory, which I didn't notice before. Whoa. Heck. I didn't notice that. Huh. Well, we'll see how this goes. Compiled 6. Yeah, well, I saw that message before. Let's see. Nope. Time to see what's going on. I don't know. Huh. No, I do not work for Microsoft. I do not. No. Expose the HMR server port as well. Yeah, I mean, do you know what that is? I don't know. Let's see. Does not load. Oh, hang on. Oh. This is probably it. But that's okay, we'll figure it out. Yeah, but no, Bokjo, I don't work for Microsoft. I'm one of the few people that don't. That's what we need. I guarantee. I've run across this so many times. Yeah. It's gotta be. It's the host thing. I know it is. It's goofy. Let's try it. Let's try it. In package. In gets in the scripts. Gatsby develop. I think we have to do this. And we'll just do the port for good measure. We'll rebuild this. Well, we don't have to rebuild it, we'll just... Actually, I think we do. When we get to Docker Compose, yeah, I think it's the -H. I run across this a couple of times, and it never sticks with me enough to remember why it's a problem. Yeah. I know I ran into that recently too. I'm gonna see. Actually, let's see. So no, I don't need that anymore. It wasn't that. One of these things, I ran across it, and it solved a thing. Oh, shit. Well, here we go. Man, be sure you're correct when you adjust this package JSON before you build this thing up. Yeah, it's exactly... Yeah, it's... And it's a dumb error. It's one that I probably... You know what? Here we go. That's what these are for. Here. While we're waiting. There. Well, I mean, it doesn't really help. I'm ignoring this file, so it's like it's not going to get pushed up for the greater good, but it'll be a reminder to myself next time. Why are you doing dumb stuff? Yeah, but you know, it's one of those things where what do you think is more frustrating? I certainly have an opinion, but when you do a thing and you're like, this should work, this totally should work, and then it doesn't, you're like, damn. Or you do a thing and you're like, no, this has to break, and then it works and you have no idea why. I personally think that's more frustrating, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Bokjo, do you work for Microsoft too? Or do you want to? Vacation till the 8th of January, man. Telling you, that's awesome. Oh, here we go. Let's try this again. I had a really long break a couple of jobs ago, and it was mostly due to a use it or lose it type thing. I was working for a university, and it was too much time off, to be honest, for me. I mean, altogether, it's probably like 3 weeks off in a row, and I got kind of anxious, and we didn't have cool stuff like Twitch back in my day. We didn't have this Twitch stuff, so I got bored. It's kind of difficult. Okay, allegedly, I think this thing is starting to run. It's wanting to run. In your country. What's your country? Bokjo. If you don't mind me asking, if you don't want to say, that's fine. I get it. No problem. I'm not about trying to dox people up in here. People say what they want, do what they want. Knowing it'll break is fine. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is if it works and it's not supposed to, then what the hell? But yeah, if it's supposed to work and it breaks, then yeah, we probably figured this out. Macedonia? No idea. No idea. I'm not geographically inclined. I'm not too bad. Hey! Lan and BR. You got it, man. And no need for the dev server thing. I think it's because it's a web socket. I think that's my thing. I'm guessing maybe for the hot reload. Yeah, so it's a WebSocket. So it's just doing the WebSocket over the localhost 8000. So it's not a specific hot reload port. But there, look at that. Welcome to your new Gatsby site. The cool thing about this Almost midnight. It's a work day. Oh yeah, you're out till the 8th, so it doesn't matter. I have trouble with late night streams. Ellie Face is one that does a lot of really late night streaming stuff, and it's a lot of fun to watch. But man, sometimes I'm like, holy crap! I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't stay up till 11 or 12. Oh damn, you're right. You're right. Hey, you know every stream needs an improvement. Look, here's our thing. It's working. Localhost 8000. The other cool thing about this Kitematic tool, so this is the one we're doing. And it has your web preview right there. So you gotta know what's coming out of this container. And you can check out all the little settings. So here it's saying the volume map. So it's saying I'm mounting a volume, which we are. It even knows like, oh, that yarn version, Jesus. The node version, that's the container name because I didn't give it a container name. And your host and your ports. So, you know what's interesting though? Bridge is default, so it was always using the default bridge. That's where you would say allocate TTY, which is like -T, keep standard and open. So, what I'm wondering is the change that we made, Landon, BR, isn't really reflected in here, and I think it's because we did it as the argument to the npm command. So this thing is examining the Docker file in the Docker runtime. It wouldn't know. But I'm pretty sure we probably could have done that here. I think. If we had set, I think this. I don't know. But anyway, there we have it. We have a thing. Let's commit it. It works, right? And you notice it takes a couple times hitting Command C. We're going to have to fix that. The reason is because the Command C, the interrupt signal is not being interpreted. It's being interpreted through npm, not through the process ID 1. And so we're going to have to fix that up. Because otherwise, when you deploy this and it gets an interrupt signal and it doesn't die, then that makes it really difficult for orchestrators to kill containers when they need to. So we're going to have to fix that up. But for now, we're going to commit. So, what do we have? We have the whole Docker file. Heck, the whole app folder. We're going to have to ignore. Hang on. Yeah, so it's not committing that. I hope. Yep, nope, that's all fine. Okay. There. It's up there. If you guys want to pull that down, there's nothing secret or special in there. Pull it down and play with it. You can do pull requests. You can do whatever you want to it. So up next, we are going to orchestrate this with Compose. And that actually makes it a lot easier when you are making changes to bring things up, bring them down. You can default that they build when they bring up. We'll be able to specify that -H thing. I'm pretty sure we would use the host. We'll be able to do our volume mapping. We'll do our node module mapping, so we don't have to keep rebuilding this crap. And then when we get that done and we get it actually working, we'll turn it into a static site that would be good for a programmer. And then we'll try to publish it on AWS. And then we'll start making iterations and add a build system that can actually build those things in and republish them out. And then I don't know, because that's a handful of streams. It's good enough. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. I know this is 2 nights in a row. You're probably very tired of me, but I wanted to get on to somewhat of a schedule and do things in a planned way. I only made 3 scene switching. Yes, and then I only made 3 scene switching mistakes. I would say in the course of about 2 hours, that's okay. But Gekitsu is there to remind me. And another improvement, thank you, is I've made the chat its own separate popped out window and the font bigger so that I can see what you guys are saying a little easier. So I can catch things like that. Bulk Joe, good night to you. It's, you said, almost midnight there. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope maybe you can join me for my Saturday stream. It'll be kind of brand new. I'm going to possibly get set up to be doing some Arduino stuff. I don't know. But that's my goal, is that Saturdays are going to be a little bit different kind of a stream than just code. So other than that, you all have a great evening. I'm going to switch out of here and hop off. And I will see you around the Twitterverse. Thank you, Landon BR. Thank you all for your help.